Good evening and welcome to Beyond the Hashtag, Next Moves for Action. Tonight we'll be answering the question with some of our organizing rock stars, what happens to a movement for social change after the hashtag has finished trending and it's now time to build a movement? Tonight we have a number of amazing young women who lead this conversation with us, and I feel so privileged and excited to have the opportunity to share this platform with them. Help me welcome to tonight's conversation Ms. Jazminique Holley. She's our Missouri NAACP Youth and College Division President. Jazminique has been really instrumental in some of the action on the ground that we've seen in Ferguson following the killing of Mike Brown. Welcome, Jazminique. We have also with us Ms. Erin Gaddis. Erin is the Texas NAACP Youth and College Division President. Erin and her team in Texas have recently launched a mentoring program. They've been doing some phenomenal campus organizing, specifically on Erin's campus at Baylor University, and really been instrumental in building work around young adult engagement, not only within the NAACP, but also within the larger social justice movement. And we have none other than our political strategist and organizing connoisseur, Miss Eljoy Williams, our Brooklyn NAACP president, who is really fluent and engaged in issues around police brutality actions in New York, as well as social media activism and political consultant. For our Google Plus audience, please be sure to tell us about yourself and what you do using the hashtag for tonight's conversation, hashtag Beyond the Hashtag. Welcome, ladies. How's everyone doing this evening?
Hi. I'm blessed.
Great. So we're going to go right ahead and jump into tonight's conversation to make the most use of our time. We'll start off with, and really, Jazminique, I will toss the first question to you. In your opinion, what does it mean to be a digital activist today?
As far as being a digital activist, well, I would most definitely say that first off, you want to make sure that you are incorporating all people of all different ethnic backgrounds, gender, religion, everything. You want to incorporate all different types of people using social media. I cannot lie to you all. I'm very honest. I was not a social media type of person before the Michael Brown incident, but I could not allow the media to tell my truth. As being a person here on the ground here in St. Louis, Missouri, and also a Ferguson resident, I did not want to allow the media to tell my story. So I found it necessary to make sure that I was actually on the social networks giving the people the truth. Also, as far as being an NAACP member, I also wanted them to know that we were on the ground, and I did not want anyone else to tell their story for the NAACP besides us. So right. I would say most definitely telling your story using social media and using all types of digital, what's the word I'm looking for, everything, using your cell phone, all types of computers, your iPads, using all of that to tell your own story, I would say would probably be the overall purpose of a digital media leader in this movement.
Well, that's very interesting. Jazminique, you make a very interesting point when you talk about young people on the ground in Ferguson, having a connection to social media to be able to tell their own story. Erin, question for you. I know that you're not in the greater Ferguson, St. Louis area, but we know that it was Twitter where young people took to Twitter posting pictures of Michael Brown's body laying in the street. That's what made this case a national case. So Erin, talk to us for a second as someone outside of the area, but also seeing the work that young folks like Jazminique are doing in Ferguson. What are your thoughts on the role of digital activism today?
I mean, ultimately, what digital activism does, like a bunch of different mediums that you can use to reach large amounts of people, it puts pressure on the issue. You're able to see what's going on. You're able to get firsthand accounts, not really relying on the media and, quotes that may have been cherry-picked and put in different places and all of those different things. It gives you an opportunity to actually see what's going on. Actually have a chance to possibly make an objective observation based off of the things that you're getting through social media. So I think it really kind of put into perspective the severity of the issue of police brutality, and a lot of issues I think that systemically affect communities of color, like that of Ferguson and the surrounding community. So I think social media definitely it was a great tool, an instrument to kind of bring awareness to this issue, and it got national attention. So it put pressure on the issue and got people moving.
Interesting point, Erin. You make this mention of using social media to be able to apply pressure. Eljoy, I want to come to you because I know that you do work within a number of large coalitions and consulting. And how have you all been able to do much of what Erin just said? How have you been able to be successful with digital activism and really using it as a tool to apply pressure and to really help organize communities?
Well, one of the first things that we recognize is that a number of the population that we want to reach were online, right? And so part of one of the basic rules of organizing is you have to meet people where they are. And so while certainly we want to go to church and go to events and be out in the community in a physical presence, as organizers for this current age, you also want to make sure that you have a digital presence. And so one of the reasons why, sort of we incorporated all, you guys are in NAACP, so we get the criticism all the time about being old and antiquated, but there is certainly value in the old methods of organizing. Some of the rules still apply. It's just that we're going to a new space, that being a digital space. And so for us, we found it very successful in being able to, one, not only communicate to the area that we cover, which is in Brooklyn, communicate to them what we do on an ongoing basis, but then also making sure that our messages online are inviting to people to say you should come out and join us as well. I mean, that's definitely benefited us, where we have other people who didn't know that there was an NAACP presence in Brooklyn. We now have greater attention, and so that allows us to be more widespread and allows us to respond to issues more effectively.
It makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. One of the things that we've seen really in the aftermath of what's happened in Ferguson and the great organizing and the great work that young people are leading in a real grassroots way on the ground, we've seen this conversation around folks being too extreme, folks being too conservative, folks straddling the fence in their positions and in their thoughts around organizing. Dr. King has a quote I'd like to throw out there for our consideration, and I'd love to get your thoughts on what it means to you. Dr. King says, the question is not if we will be extremists, but instead what kind of extremists we will be. The nation and the world are in dire need of creative extremists. I'll give you that quote one more time. Dr. King says, the question is not if we will be extremists, but what kind of extremists we will be. The nation and the world are in dire need of creative extremists. Erin, I'll go to you. When you hear that, what does that mean to you?
I mean, I think it really just kind of personifies some of the livelihood of some of those individuals that we look up to, like Martin Luther King or the Malcolm X's and all of the different people who took it upon themselves to step outside of the status quo and to be extremists for the cause. And I think taking that passion and channeling it into organizing and being productive and all of those different things, I think when you put that type of passion, that type of extreme passion behind it, I think you're able to see a lot of change come about. So I agree. Like, yes, for the right cause, there is a necessity for a few extremists out there, because ultimately those are the game changers. Those are the ones that are gonna get things done. They're not gonna, go with the flow. They're gonna go with, go against the grain a little bit. So I like that quote. It speaks to a lot of the people that I think we put on that pedestal when we talk about social justice and civil rights.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Jazminique, one of the things that we know is that in Dr. King's time, many folks We now idolize Dr. King, but at the time there were a lot of folks in opposition to his work because they felt he was an extremist. And so as one of the people on the ground and Ferguson organizing, when you hear this quote from Dr. King around the world being in dire need of creative extremists, how does that speak to you and the work you and your partners and colleagues are doing on the ground in Ferguson?
Well, basically, when I heard that quote, Sammie, the first thing that came to my mind was everyone has their place in the movement.
Wow.
And not all of us have to necessarily be on the ground, eye to eye and toe-to-toe with police officers. Not all of us have to be tear gassed. Everyone has their own gift. And I think that what Dr. Martin Luther King was saying was that he wants us, we're all going to be extreme, but be extreme in your own way. Find out what your gift is. Use your gift that God gave you to bring it to the table so that we all bring something to the table and that everyone has their own place and their own way of being extreme. For example, I just attended a workshop with some great leaders from Amnesty International and the Organization for Black Struggle. And in that meeting, we figured out that, okay, Jazz's place in the movement is the babies and the next generation. And so they respect that, they love that, and they appreciate that about me. They know that when the time comes, Jazz is going to be on the ground, and I'm going to be with them, but they know that that's my place in the movement, is bridging the gap so that the next generation does not feel failed like we did when Ferguson first happened. So I think that that's all that Dr. Martin Luther King was just saying. Everybody has a gift, and everybody has their place in the movement.
It's very interesting, very interesting. So, Eljoy, to bring it to you, so you're not necessarily doing work in a campus organizing model. Really, you are seeking to show the NAACP in the world what a modern-day NAACP branch looks like. So when you hear that term from Dr. King, creative extremists, what does that mean to your particular context as a local NAACP branch president?
You know, I'm also mindful of just putting his work into a larger context, right, and his words on why we can't wait, right? So the reason why we have to be extreme is that we can't wait on people to, you know, come up to this mindset on their own that we should be equal and have, you know, justice on their time. Part of this in its entire context is that, yes, you know, MLK at his time was considered an extremist, and literally he was just pushing for an idea change and pushing for this country to live up to its founding documents. And that is our role. I mean, that has been our role for 106 years as NAACP, is not to ask for anything above and beyond what this country has promised us as citizens. And so in terms of being extremists, you know, we are extreme in that we extremely want this country to be a representative of what it said is going to be, right? So you can't be the land of the brave when you are not brave enough to stand up for those who are being gunned down in the street at the hands of those who are supposed to be protecting them. You can't be the land of the free when you have people who are caught in a cycle that begins in a schoolhouse and you destine them to be in prison, right? So there is that cycle that we consistently break. And so it is also our role as organizers and as NAACP to not make people feel comfortable. I don't want you to feel comfortable in your bondage, and I don't want our captors to feel comfortable either. And so it is our role to be extremists because we can't wait for anybody to think on their own that it's their opportunity or their time to free us.
Wow, wow, Eljoy, powerful words. Jazminique, I want to jump to you. Eljoy puts into context, puts Dr. King's work into context when she says why we can't wait. So when we talk about digital activism, when we talk about the organizing that we're seeing happening online, one of the major questions we often hear is how do we translate digital activism, how do we translate online organizing into boots on the ground? And so I think as we look at this notion of what Dr. King calls the fierce urgency of now, how do you think, or how have you seen folks be really successful in translating this digital online engagement to actually seeing boots on the ground and folks organizing in local communities?
Well, let me just say that here I am so proud of several coalitions that I work with because they are amazing as far as being digital leaders and actually having that translate into actually putting feet on the ground, not only online, but one thing that I love, we have a coalition here and they have an actual text code that you can subscribe to. And when you subscribe to it, they send you messages about where the next action is going to be, where the next workshop is going to be, where the next sit-in, boycott, whatever we're doing here is going to be. And in turn, not only does that put feet on the ground, but that has actually unified a lot of our young people here in the city of St. Louis and here in Missouri, period. They have been extremely effective with that, and I have also taken notes from them. And I try to make sure that we all try to make sure that we stay in touch with each other via social media, via text message, any way we possibly can, because we're all busy, so we all can't talk on the phone. But I would say that that has probably been the biggest tool here, right here, that has really, really helped us to get feet on the ground, is that we're constantly communicating with each other through digital media. So basically telling us when to show up, what time.
I think what you're saying, Jazminique, is extremely powerful, and we've seen so many of the young folks that have taken a grassroots lead in this movement. They really are using social media to say, I need you here, I need you here at this time, this is what's going down, and really using social media to also share and to be very fluid with each other around challenges that may be happening on the ground during direct actions. Erin, I know that you all have recently launched a mentoring program in Texas and are really looking to build that. How have you all seen success with, young people engaging with each other online, maybe in a field capacity? You all really have great capacity around your field organizing. What's been some of the field successes that you've seen? What have been some of the tips and techniques that have been really helpful in you all getting young people moving on the ground as well?
Well, yeah, so within the state of Texas, we have talked about the Wellstone Triangle extensively when it comes to successful movements. And so for those who aren't familiar with the Wellstone Triangle, it basically talks about the three parts to a successful movement, which is public policy, electoral organizing, and then grassroots organizing. And so some of the things that we encourage our youth and college chapters throughout the state to do is to get involved in either one of the three capacities. So as far as electoral organizing, we were really pushing, get out the vote, voter registration drives, and different things like that. And that's, how the youth and college students were able to be a part of the movement. And then we have the public policy side, where we are encouraging youth and college units across the state to meet with their respective congressmen, representatives, senators, etc., on certain bills. And some of the bills that we're looking at the federal level is the Youth Promise Act that the NAACP has endorsed. And then also at the state level, we're focusing on an on-body camera program. And that was a bill that was introduced by Senator West out of Dallas and Representative Reynolds out of Houston. And so those are some of the bills and different things that we're encouraging our units to advocate on behalf of. And then the final thing is grassroots organizing. So back when, the tensions were a little bit higher, we were encouraging people to get out, get their voices out, marches, die-ins, demonstrations, anything that we can do to bring awareness to these issues concerning police brutality and gun violence within our community. So those are the three, major initiatives that we have that are geared towards getting youth active. So that's what we're doing in Texas.
So we have a few more minutes left, but I'd love for both Eljoy and Jazminique to respond to this particular question. We've seen huge generational divides in this movement, and the reality is we are all necessary to this work. We have the older generation because they're wise, and the younger generation because they're strong. And so how can we, Eljoy, I'll toss to you first, then Jazminique, how can we really bridge this gap between youth activists and our more seasoned elder statespeople and activists in this movement? What are your thoughts on that, Eljoy?
Well, we can have a whole hangout just on this conversation. However, I will kind of keep this brief. So, in our lexicon, we often use the phrase that you just said. We have the old because they're wise and the young because they're strong. But what is also missing is sort of the generation of now, right? And it's something that those of us in my generation, I don't know how old everyone else is, but I'm perfectly fine with my age. I'm 36. And so when you talk about you have the old as wise and the young as strong, we're also completely missing generations in between, and also the young people. Additionally, we act as if every single generation, we act as if the generational divide is new. As if this new generation, we've never had this before, there's so much fighting and divide, where those of us who are students of history know that, all the way to the back, if you believe in a God and believe in the Bible, there is a generation divide there as well, right? So there is always going to be this generation divide because that is just part of human nature. What we have to determine, one is, as each generation passes, how are we going to shift and change so that we can work together in the world of now. So the world we are in now, sort of how do we bring in each generation and not leave anyone out? I think what is really missing is the disconnect that happened in our generation, and the disconnect between our parents and us is now being repeated, in that we are telling younger people, we're in our 30s and still being called youth, when we have 16 and 17 and 15-year-olds who rightly need to be taking up this space that we are taking. We are not, and this is a challenge I say to myself as well, and I've asked myself at the beginning of this year, am I taking up space for someone who is 15, for someone who is 17? The answer is yes. And so then what is my responsibility, knowing that that was also done to me from a previous generation, to make sure that it's not repeated, right? So it's also us taking a hard look at ourselves and not repeating some behavior that we know is detrimental to our growth and to the movement. I don't know the daily existence of a 15-year-old and what issues and concerns that they face on a daily basis that may be different, and I need to hear that. And we need not to take up space just because space was taken up from us.
Wow. Very powerful. And Jazminique, I'll pitch to you. So I find myself, I'm very proud of my age too. I find myself as a 28-year-old, my everyday reality, the demands of balancing life and planning a wedding with my fiance and all of these things give me a very different day-to-day reality, as Eljoy said, than many young folks who are early 20s, late teens. So in your mind, as you're interacting with folks really in that demographic every single day in the work that you do in Ferguson, what are your thoughts on how we bridge that gap between generations doing this work?
Okay. Well, I actually have 3 bullet points that I want everybody to take as it pertains to this question. I want them to write it down and take it home with them. As far as bridging the generational gap, there's 3 bullet points I want everybody to actually remember. 1, we need to identify and recognize each other's strengths and build upon them. Secondly, we need to listen to each other. 3, we need to teach one another. So if we do those 3 things, I believe that is the key to actually bridging that gap. As far as identifying and recognizing each other's strengths, young people, social media, technology, that is our strength. So that's part of our place in this movement. As far as our elders, wisdom. My grandmother always says there's a difference between wisdom and knowledge. Although you may know the material, you may know the pedagogy, wisdom comes from God, and wisdom comes from experience. So we have to acknowledge the fact that they have that wisdom. As far as listening, We have to come to the table and say, hey, this is what we expect of you, this is what we want from you, and the young people have to come to the table and say the same thing. And then we execute and we teach one another and we build upon those strengths that we have recognized. And I think that those are the three key bullet points to helping us bridge that generational gap.
Jazminique, sister, you were doing some serious teaching, and I appreciate that because, like you said, we have to recognize strengths. We have to listen to each other. We have to teach each other. But more importantly, we have to recognize that there's so much work that everybody is needed to do something. So we have about 4 minutes left. And I just want to take a second. Erin, is there a favorite activism, either online or in the field, whose work you really, really admire that you'd like to give a special shout out to this evening?
In addition to, I think, our youth and college division units who are already doing great work out there on the ground, I think the AUC out in Atlanta, like the students that are part of that, they're doing some great work. And also, his name is slipping me right now. But yes, there are a lot of people out there that have a lot of good stuff going on within the social media realm. But I just can't think of names right now.
Eljoy, favorite activist online or not that you'd like to give special kudos to tonight?
Well, here in New York, we do have, young people who are organizing and rebelling against sort of older institutions, but I still admire their worth and their work out in the streets to organize on their reality. And I want to give a special shout out here in New York to the New York Justice League, who has been fighting really both online and offline to hold folks accountable. We're part of their coalition in support of them as well to hold NYPD accountable as we go forward. And so that's who I'd like to shout out this evening.
Awesome. Miss Holley, how about you?
Are y'all ready for my list? Because we jamming in St. Louis, Missouri. Y'all ready? Okay. Well, first off, I want to shout out Kayla from the organization of Black Struggle. She is awesome. She is articulate. She's assertive. She is brave. She is courageous. I want to shout out Netta and DeRay from Amnesty International. They are the bomb. I want to shout out Millennial Activists United. I want to shout out Hands Up United. I want to shout out STL, St. Louis Students in Solidarity, an organization made up of all different higher education students who have come together and also join hands in order to make sure that we get what we want as far as the system goes and watching everyone progress. So I love you all, and I am here in St. Louis. I am not alone. The NAACP Youth and College Division here is not alone. These coalitions, these people that I have named, they have been working side by side with us. Also, I want to shout out Brittany Pagnett, who is our executive director for Teach for America. She's also on Obama's police task force. She is doing her thing. We have so many amazing people here in St. Louis, Missouri. So I love you guys.
That's awesome, and I'd be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to say special shout out to the NAACP Youth and College Division across the country who are rocking and doing amazing work in their local communities. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us tonight. You ladies have been absolutely phenomenal, and I've so enjoyed our conversation. Quick question for you. How can viewers get in contact with you online? Eljoy?
You can follow me on Twitter at eljoywilliams.com. You can see down below here. It's the same on Facebook, Instagram. You can always find me online. I tweet the news in the morning.
Awesome. Jazminique, how about you? Where can folks get in touch with you online?
Typically, I give out my phone number because I'm very family-oriented, but I can't do that tonight, huh? So I would say go ahead and follow me on Instagram. I am going to do my Twitter. I'm going to get it together. But you can follow me on Instagram at Jazz Holley. It's down below. And I will follow back.
Awesome. Ms. Gaddis, how about you?
Okay,
yeah. With Texas Youth and College.
Yes, you can follow us at Texas NAACP YC on Instagram and Twitter, and then also my personal Instagram is Erin Ayan, ERINAYAN. So yeah, that's how you can reach us.
Awesome, awesome as well. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Sammie Dow. Hey, listen, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at NAACP Connect for more interactive content during Black History Month. Remember, you can keep the conversation going tonight with the hashtag Beyond the Hashtag. We'd like to thank PBS Black Culture Connection for helping us bring you one more Google Hangout on air February 24th. Mark your calendars. The Movement, Sounds of Revolution will be the topic of conversation. To follow up and get more information about our topic today, you can watch the program America After Ferguson on pbs.org. Thank you for joining us. Remember to go to IamNAACP.org to get involved with your local NAACP chapter and to begin to be the change in your community that you want to see. Again, thanks, ladies. Thank you to PBS, and we look forward to it. Hey, here's a quick snippet of the program America After Ferguson that you can find on pbs.org.